time. This is something that we do annually, back to school before school starts. However, at our last meeting, there was a demand for us to do a check-in to see how parents and their children are doing in school. And this is the promise fulfilled. Today we are doing it in a different way. It will be in a different format. We will have the speakers speak for 20 minutes. Dr. Oni will speak on mental health. Mr. Kajetan Ebujo will speak on child abuse. And Dr. Fatima will speak on parents preparing their children for school and also what they need to do to interact with the school. And Dr. Femi Akane will speak on what the role of the church in helping the parents and the children in their education. And so we are glad that you are here today to join us. And this is something that we want every parent and their children to succeed in this place. Most of the time we come in here with our own views about education, but the system here is different. And so we want to prepare the parents and the children for the environment that they are in. So we welcome everyone, and it's time for us to go, but I want to let us know that this event is sponsored by Ramsey County. Ramsey County is dedicated to our welfare, is the county of love. So so we appreciate the opportunity that they are providing. Mr. Ebujo, don't be jealous.
No, I'm not.
You are not.
Anything can follow the suit. And Dakota County.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know who wants to take the lead. Any one of you can take the lead. I'm fine with that. Mr. Kajetan, do you want to take the lead?
Okay.
we want to protect our children.
Okay, so you want me to speak on child protection?
Yes.
All right. My name is Kajetan Ebuja. I'm a child protection worker with Dakota County. I have done child protection. This May will be 24 years.
Wow.
Child protection, so with Dakota County. Previously before that, I did case management and also child protection with the state of Louisiana. So I believe I have 27, 28 years under my belt in child protection. So, well, since it has to do with families, what is child protection? I have a very interesting answer for that. Most of the parents said to me during an assessment, I introduced myself and I said, I'm a child protection worker. And she kept looking at me and I said, do you know what that is? She said, yes. What is it? She said, those people who take people's children. I said, wow. I said, okay. Well, I said, not exactly. Child protection is not about taking people's children. Child protection is about protecting children. It is also about building up families. It's one thing that I found is most people do not know how child protection operates and what it entails. So for us to, before I go into, talking about what families need to do when CPS comes knocking and how to navigate the system, I will like to, first of all, describe what CPS is. How do we get reports? The first question we get when you get to the parents is, they spend all their energy. Who made the report? Who called you? Oh, and they spend about 10, 15 minutes calling names of people they're fighting with and trying to figure out, who called. Well, as a parent, do not waste your energy trying to find out who called or who made the report. Even if the worker knows, they will never tell you who made that report. That name is protected under the law, and they cannot divulge that information to you. So dwelling on it will be, time wasted and effort. So reports, how do we get the reports? Reports come from school teachers, other social workers, case managers, hospital social workers, all places. When that report comes to a central point. So when I'm talking, since I work for Dakota County, I'll describe what goes on in Dakota County, and I believe it's similar to all the counties. So when that report comes in, it goes to intake. So intake, worker takes that report, okay? Once that report is taken, it goes to the intake supervisor. The intake supervisor and two other supervisors, the assessment supervisors. There are two assessment units, the family assessment and the traditional assessment. So these three supervisors will sit down and talk about this case and decide which track to go and decide, if it meets statute. Again, what I want the parents to know is child protection is protected under the law statute. We have the right, we are protected to come to you. So challenging us will do nothing but aggravate the matter the more. So when they decide which track that report goes, then people like us who are in the forefront will not get assigned those cases. And then we'll be able to come to you. Okay, what kinds of reports do we get? Now, what we have, another point the parents should know is what we have is allegation. Nobody is accusing you. Nobody is charging you with anything. They mix this up with the criminal justice system. What we have is allegation. So I will tell you, I have allegation of neglect, physical abuse, and so on. What kinds of reports do we have? We have physical abuse. And what is physical abuse? Physical abuse is a non-accidental injury, not reasonable, disciplines that are not reasonable or moderate. Okay? Kicking, punching to the vulnerable parts of the body, shaking or throwing a young baby, confinement, locking, caging, tying, interference with breathing. All this will get you an allegation of physical abuse. And also threats of substantial harm or physical harm. If you keep, most African parents, the way we talk, we say, I am going to do this to you. I am going to do this to you. We say that to our children. They go to school and they repeat this to the teachers. And then you get a physical abuse. It's threatened physical abuse. That's what you are threatening that child. We need to desist from doing that. Okay? Giving a child dangerous or harmful substances for punishment. Some people do that. Those are all physical abuse. Let me elaborate a little bit more on threatened injury. The threatened injury is a statement or an act or condition or status that represents a substantial risk of physical or sexual abuse or mental injury. A person who has been determined legally unsafe who is residing with a child or who is unsupervised around the child. So those are examples of what could be threatened injury. Then we'll go to the next category, which is neglect, which is the most common part of report that we get all the time. What is neglect? Neglect is failure by the person responsible for the child's care to supply necessary, is the word, necessary, food and clothing, shelter, unsafe living conditions, health care, medical neglect, supervision, and educational neglect. We'll talk about educational neglect. It's another critical one that most people of color get in trouble for. Okay, so poverty is not neglect. We don't kill you because you're poor. No, poverty is not neglect. That you do not have fancy bed in your home is not neglect. As long as you have blankets and clothing that the child can sleep on, even if you're sleeping on the floor, but you have blanket to cover yourself. So we don't use our category. For those, we use the BRS minimum. So people sometimes, and some child protection workers have been known to bring parents, people of color in because they didn't have this and have that. We don't use our standard for that. As long as they have roof over their head, they have food to eat, and they have blankets to cover themselves where they sleep on the spot that they sleep, a good safe spot that they can sleep in, that is fine. So what that worker needs to do is to help that family to get those things that they lack. There are places you can go. If you're in child protection, you can easily get over the line to the top to help them get those things that they need in their home. That's what they need to be doing instead of trying to get mom and dad in trouble. You don't get people in trouble because they are poor. Okay? All right. So let's talk about physical abuse. Okay? And no, I'll continue with neglect. So I have supervision, another critical part of neglect that people get. Most parents do not know the age that children could be left home alone by themselves because they are working. This is very, very important. Children 7 and under can never be left alone for any amount of time. No excuses. Okay? 8 to 10, they may be alone for 3 hours, depending on their mental capacity. The parents should know the mental capacity of the child. If you feel that child is challenged and they are 10, don't leave them home alone because they are 10 years old. The worker is going to check out those and ask you questions. 11 to 13 may be home alone for 12 hours. Okay? 14 to 15 may be alone for 24 hours. 16 to 17 may be alone for longer with emergency plan. Okay? Children under the age of 11 are not to provide child care. Children under the age of 11 are not to provide child care. If they get to the age of 11, to be on the safe side, you can send them to one of those child babysitting classes that they do, and you tell the worker, oh, she has gone, my son or my daughter has gone to this class. And that will help you, if they are not quite the age of 12 yet. 11 to 17, they are subject to the same restrictions as supervision rules here. So those are the neglect supervision. I'm looking for, let me see. So those are part of the stuff that we have about children. Let's talk about sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is another area. Children receiving money, goods, or services in return for sexual contact. That has to be reported. That is called sexual abuse. Children who are sexually abused or exploited, it is a rule. You don't blame them. It is not the fault of the child. Never, ever tell the child it's your fault. It is the fault of the adult that is involved in this. So when those reports come in this category, so the parents will hear this is the allegation, neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse. Ask the worker to explain if you don't understand. You have the right to ask questions. When the worker shows up at your house, you can ask for their ID, politely. Ask for their ID. Rule of thumb, as a child protection worker, I'll tell you what I do. If I come, I'm a human being, and we have our own moods up and down. If the worker comes to your door and they're talking about your child, the best thing you should do is to welcome them, hear what they have to say, avoid confrontation, avoid unnecessary arguments. Because if you keep arguing with the worker, that child protection worker has the responsibility to determine if your child is safe in your care at that point in time. If they make that determination that this child is not safe here, the child may be safe the next minute, but at that point, they could make a decision with their supervisors to remove that child from your care. So it is absolutely important that you listen to what they have to say and have the opportunity to explain yourself. And that is, very, very important to explain yourself. And then when you hear what they have to say, you're able to answer questions. 2, I want the parents to know child protection workers are covered under the law. We have the right to go to school to talk to speak to the children. Actually, we prefer to talk to the children in school. The reason being, the children will be free to speak to us and tell us, what is going on at home. If the child is sitting there at home in front of mom, they probably won't tell us what is going on. So we prefer to do this. So when school is out and the worker comes and say, can you find me, or can you leave us for 2 minutes? I want to talk to your son or daughter. Some parents say, no. When you tell me no and insist on sitting there, you're making me think you're trying to cover something. You want that child, there's something you don't want the child to tell me. So what do I do in that instance? I can make 1 or 2 decisions. I can step out and call my supervisor. If I determine to really pursue it, we can, I can pursue it. In Dakota County, we go out in pairs. We go out with the police. So the police is there, for my protection and also to see if a crime has been committed. So that's why once the report comes in, we also cross-report to the police department that has jurisdiction. So they will always assign a detective to come with us. So we come out and then we do it in pair. One of the advantages will be you talk to somebody, 2 people at the same time. You don't have to do it 2 times. If I come and somebody comes, it's not really good on the parents. So the child protection worker can make the decision to remove a child from home if they think that it's not safe for that child to be there. They can also call the county attorney and have you, file a child in need of protective services and drag you to court. Another mistake people do is they start dodging phone calls and they don't want to meet. When you keep doing that, the result will be there will be a court action and you have to go to court. So if you're saying, some parents will say, I don't have time, I can't take off from work. Well, these are your children, has to do with your child. You need to find time to come talk to the person. If you don't, you're probably going to be taking a lot more time off from work to drive back and forth. And in Dakota County, you know where the courts are, in Hastings. So it's a long haul for somebody who lives in West Paul to go to Hastings. So it's better for you to sit down and talk. I can also make a decision and have you come to the police department to talk to me if you don't want to do it in your home. So when a worker shows up and they say, I want to walk around your house, allow them. Because what they're doing is assessment. They will check the kids' room, where the kids are. They will open your refrigerator to see. They will look at the food. If they see expired food, they are beginning to get in trouble. So if they see food flies, if you have dishes that are not washed, or you have dirty diapers all over the place, they will not remove your child because you have dirty diapers all over the place. But if they feel it is too much, they will say to you, immediate action. Do you have a relative that you can drop your children off with for a day and you clean up? I'll come back and check. Now, when you start putting blocks in the way, roadblocks, that worker will have no alternative than to remove the children from you. The police officer is right there already. So it's just 2 minutes. It's a form they fill out. Once that form is filled out, that child becomes a ward of the state for 72 hours until you go back to court. You need to avoid that by any means necessary. Because once that child goes into care, it may take anywhere from a month to 3 months. Most times, 2 months, 3 months before that child comes home. And that is a lot of pressure on the parents. So that could be avoided. A lot of placements could be avoided by just simply sitting down to talk to the worker. Simple. So child protection, after all, is not a monster. We have a human face come to you. We do smile, we do laugh, we do things everybody does. We have our own children and families, and we do feel for the parents. However, certain actions may necessitate a child being removed from home. So removing a child from your care, when I hear it, I know it's always the last resort. It's always the last resort. Now, if somebody says the child protection came and they took my children away, now 90% of the time they're probably using drugs, meth, heroin, they had drugs. Marijuana is really not part of it, except if you're so high and you're not functioning when that worker shows up. So when we do ask you to do a UA, we're not looking for marijuana. We're looking for the hard drugs. The fact that you're using drugs, again, does not mean that you're not a good parent. It becomes a problem when the use of that drug impacts your ability to care for your children. That is when it becomes a problem. Okay, so child protection has statutes. I want the parents to know you have rights. Again, you don't have to let me into your home. I will tell you that. However, it is in your interest to allow me to come in to do what I need to do. Because if you do it the other way, it is not going to be to your own advantage. So you allow the person to come in, talk to them, sit down, and they will always tell you which way forward. If child protection shows up in your home and they tell you we're going to remove your child, if you have a grandfather, a grandmother, an auntie, an uncle that can check out, tell them, let me call my sister to take my children. Mm. Most times they will make those arrangements with you, provided your sister would not turn around in the evening, allow you unlimited access to the children, as against the safety plan that was drawn by the worker. So grandparents are always a great resource, and child protection CP worker will gladly tell grandparents to, come take the children and let mom work their issues out, or dad work their issues out. They're always a good resource. Again, if we still need to place, if it's something really, really serious and mom is high on drugs, we will do a hold and that child will stay with your parents instead of going into foster care. And your parents will be licensed as relative foster parents for that child for the duration when that child will be until mom is able to get the children back. So you can always ask for that alternative instead of having the children go into care. The CP worker will ask you, do you have any relatives that you would like for us to check out? So again, there's a caveat to it. Once you give me that name, we'll do a quick background check on that person. It takes only a few minutes. Just takes me a phone call. I'll call the office. They will do the check. If they see the preliminary check, if that person has criminal things that will not allow us, because to allow us to place the child, we will not place the child with the person. So now you need to understand, a parent can have all the criminal background that they have. That's a parent. But if we're going to put a child on hold, which is a word of the government, we have to follow the rules. So there are certain rules, because you will be licensed as a foster care provider for that child. And if that will prohibit you from being licensed, we will not place the child with you. So sometimes the parents will question, why can't this child be with my sister? Well, I'm not able to tell you. I'll say, well, they can't, because there's something, they want to, I can't tell you your sister has criminal record. It's not for me to tell you. I'll just say they don't qualify. They have some stuff there that they don't qualify. And, most times parents may not understand. They may get angry with you. So so another good area that parents would like to talk about is educational neglect. How come educational neglect? How does a child become educationally neglected? If a child misses if a child all the way to the age of 7, 11, I believe, they miss 7 unexcused days, the school will call CPS and file educational neglect report. And a worker, the role of that worker will be to go find out why the child is missing school and try to mitigate those issues with the parent. When the child is beyond the age of 11, going to 12, and they miss 7 unexcused, that becomes truancy. And we have a special department, or truancy department, that goes in to work with the family. And usually most are teenagers, high school children that habitually will not show up in school. So they will have a caseload, work with that child and the mom until they try to get the child to go to school, or have that child go from the mainstream to an alternative school. They figure out if this mainstream is not for this child, they need to go to decals. Then they help them with the parents to get that child to that alternative school that will fit their learning style. So, so you can see that child protection is not all that bad. We are not bad people. We try to make families stay together. We try to do good things that, make families stay together. So that will be all I have for now. So that is how child protection works. And that is how parents can work with CPS. Cooperation is the key word. You cooperate with child protection. And why do you have to cooperate? Because you love your children. They're your children. You need to sit down, hear what they're saying. And then when they finish telling you what it is, and then you ask, what do I do now to make this right? Then the child protection worker will go from investigation, and then we'll wear the service hat. And then we can now say, okay, here is what we're going to do. We'll do A, B, C, D. And believe me, if you do that A, B, C, D, as you're told, they will be out of your, your door quickly as they can. If you start arguing, you prolong the time. So one more key point before we go that parents need to know. When a child is in care, after 6 months, and that child is in care back and forth, as soon as that child goes in care, the time clock starts ticking. At a certain point, within 6 months, and parent is not able to get that child out of care, child protection will move to terminate that parent's rights to that child. So if you have child protection 1 month, 2 months, and you get that child back, next time they come in, you have another month, that time is still, counting for you. So it's best not to even get to that point. So it's best to sit down and talk and prevent your children from going into care. We only want parents who really need help. Only kids who are really, really abused, and kids who don't have somebody that will help them within the family to go into care. We don't want working families or, for the children to go into care for one thing or the other. Sometimes parents make mistakes, and I've seen parents, that lock the kids in the house and they go to work. Most common, they go to work. And then they have a neighbor who lives next door. So the neighbor is observing, knows, okay, this mom lives in this unit with 2 children. Then at 9:30, she locks her door and is walking to the parking lot by herself. And then that neighbor is, wondering what happened to the children. Then they call the police. The police come, and the kids come to the door and answer the door, or the neighbor comes and says the kids are there. They get the apartment manager to open the door. They are there, and they will give you time. They will call you. If you don't answer your phone and you don't come back, they place the children. Now your kids are placed. You will have to, take off from work. So it's kind of hard on parents because sometimes they don't have money to pay for daycare. Sometimes they don't have anybody to watch the children, but it is the law. It is what it is. So what do we do in that circumstance? We'll try to work with the parent to see, because they are working, they probably won't qualify for daycare, to get daycare assistance. So they'll probably have to find somebody or a neighbor that will help them watch that child while they go to work. They have to go to work, they have to make a living to be able to take care of the children. But at the same time, they cannot afford daycare. So sometimes it's difficult. So what we do too is difficult when we engage the parents to see how to help them. So it's not all about, removing children as some people, want to believe in the street. So it is a common notion out there, once you show up, most families will tell you once you show up, there's problem. No, it's not always problem. Sometimes it ends well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ebujo. And if you have any question, please could you put it in the chat? And I'm thinking that we will take questions at the end when everyone has spoken. So child protection has a human face. When they come to you, it's on the basis of allegation. You are not a criminal yet. You are not convicted. You are not judged yet. They are coming to investigate an allegation. So, and parents, we should cooperate when they come to us, because what they are doing is in the interest of the child. And we know parents love their children. So that's the more reason we need to cooperate with the process. Thank you, Mr. Ebujo, for bringing a new perspective to child protection workers. We have the view that you always come to us. When you come to take our children and to ruin our family, and bring sorrow. But now we know that what you are doing is in the interest of the children. Thank you.
Yes.
And now we want to go to Dr. Fatima Lawson to prepare us regarding interacting with the school system, and let us know what rights as parents we have, or are we totally out of control when it comes to education. Dr. Fatima Lawson.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity again to address us and get us prepared for our children's education. I am so glad that I'm after Dr. Ebujo, because what they do really corresponds with what we do, and we are seen as the bad guys, because later he probably would confirm that over 50% of the calls for child protection purposes comes from the school. And you heard about educational neglect. But so that, I give us a little bit of what our parents, because I want to stick with the topic, what parents need to do to prepare their children for school and what they need to do to interact with the school. First and foremost, I think preparing children for school involves several steps, that parents can take to ensure that their children are successful in school. And then that transition, summer is, you might think it's just 2 months or 3 in some cases. It's a long, long time for the kids. They lose learning, learning opportunities. They lose other opportunities. And in some cases, they lose breakfast and lunch. And for those of you who really have been around school, you know that we give very, very, better restaurant quality food, balanced, etc., because those meals are prepared with a lot of love, a lot of concern for nutrition and health of the kids, because healthy kids, of course, if they're health in the stomach, it goes to the brain. So the first thing that our parents need to do is really to establish, daily routines for sleeping, eating, and other activities, that children are accustomed to during the school year. I know that summer, they can stay till midnight, they can watch TV, they can do so many things that they don't do during the school year. So if parents can keep that routine, it will be very, very important. I know some of them travel and then things change, but please, we're asking our parents, because we've seen this, through a lot of things that are happening when the kids come back. We are reteaching. It takes sometimes a whole quarter, if not a semester, to get them back into that routine. But if we continue the routines during summer, the kids would definitely be better off and prepared. Encourage independence. I know when grandma is in the house, grandma feeds, grandma washes the clothes, grandma does so many things, but it's important for our parents, to really encourage students to have those basic skills, dressing themselves. And I'm talking about the pre-kindergarten through second grade, especially because we have students now in second grade that were still toileting, We're still helping to dress. And, that takes away from the educational activities that we could be doing with them, like the reading, the learning, and things that should occur. We are also on a tight schedule. When you look at the curriculum that we've just established, a lot of them have time-sensitive times that we need to catch kids doing those things. And if the kids don't come to us prepared, we have to get them to that point, and it's not helping. So when you look at achievement results and everything, they think, oh, some of these schools are failing schools. Look at what they do in addition to educating the kids. So it's important for our parents to establish those routines and make sure that the students have those routines in. 3 months, as I said, could be a long time. Another thing is for them to really read together. I know, not every family can read, in the Western sense. You know what? Growing up, in the evening after meals, my grandmother, would have all the kids in the house and would tell stories. And sometimes there would be, call and response. We'll be singing. She'll be singing. We'll be responding. Now, I found out that those things are the same as reading. Tell stories. It doesn't have to be in English. Tell stories about, I know that a lot of our students, I'm talking for my particular community, a lot of our students come from traumatic experiences. And those things really follow down. I'm sure Dr. O'Neill will talk about that. I don't want to delve into the mental health and the effects of trauma on education. But based on my view as a school principal, and I've been a principal for 22 years now, I have seen so much that I said to myself, what are we telling the students? If you told them stories of when you were growing up, and all those folk tales are tales that people put together, folks put together, and then they teach moral lessons, they teach karma, and so many other things. That will also help our students, and that's like reading to them. It's just that you're not reading from a book. So when we talk about reading together, parents are like, well, I can't read. I don't have time. Yeah, I have evening shift, etc. But anytime you have, it doesn't have to be in the evening. Whenever the kids are home, in the morning, in the afternoon, when you have time, read to your children. If you cannot read, tell stories. Because stories make us. That's the fabric of our communities. As you know, a lot of us from, I would say, immigrant population really believe in storytelling. And sometimes we might bore people, but those stories are our stories, and those stories make us. So let the kids also inherit those stories. Let them know how to tell stories. Let them hear positive things that happened before the war that may have ravaged the cities and then put them in refugee camps, etc. And then if you are, an American, please read. It doesn't have to be, sometimes even in the morning. Read the serial, I would say they have nutritious values and those kinds of things. Read it to the kids. Talk about it. Let them really have a point of conversation. Talking about the food that they're eating, the value of what they're eating. Those kinds of things really do help, And then let's develop social skills. What better time to do that? Except during school we do it, but those 3 months could be very, very, very daunting for families. The kids are home, and maybe parents don't feel that they are, safe enough to go out and play. But within the house, except, a child is an only child. But for the most part, you want to make sure you encourage them to interact with other children through play dates, through community activities, and we have a lot of them in our communities. I know Ramsey County for a fact has boys and girls clubs and so many other opportunities for student camps. And if I'm not mistaken, a lot of the camps either have discounts or they are free. So let's take advantage of what is out there for us. This will help them to develop their social skills such as sharing, especially for those students who are alone, taking turns, and communicating effectively with peers. Those things come a long way. When kids come to us prepared with those skills, my goodness, we concentrate on moving them up, moving them forward. And those skills have really helped a lot of our high achievers. Check it out. Another thing is you need to expose them to learning. I know I did talk about reading earlier. Introduce age-appropriate educational activities that, like games that promote learning and critical thinking. Because to be honest with you, we are preparing the students for skills that may not exist right now. We're preparing them for the future. And then critical thinking has always been something that's a constant. So make sure that you give them the opportunities, talk to them, talk to them, talk to them. I know we African parents, especially, we don't talk. I heard one parent at one time said, you know, when we're going on vacation, we just sit down there and make a list and we talk to our kids. Okay, where do you want to go? Do you want to go to Yellowstone? Do you want to go to Niagara Falls? And then if they say, yeah, I want to go, Yellowstone. Why do you want to go? And then through that, they start, okay, research it and tell me why you want to go there. And then you see them all researching. If you have 4 children, they're researching 4 different sites if they have different opinions about where they want to go. So it is important for us to also do it because guess what? We are raising these kids as Americans. We do not lose face of who we are. We still have to, I know discipline is different now, but we still have to, express our expectations to our students. And make sure our children, make sure that they know the difference between, we don't about talk about knowing where to do something. The way you behave with your peers is not the way you behave at home with your parents. Neither is the way you behave in church with your pastor, right? So we need to teach them all these things because they're very important. We also want to make sure that they have the social consciousness of who they are, as immigrant kids. First, second, third generation, whatever the case may be. Talk positively about school. That's another thing, some of these parents will be saying, oh, I hate that teacher, or I hate that principal. And then, the kids bring it to school, believe it or not. As a kid is like, I don't have to listen to her. My mom said, I don't have to listen to her. I'm like, why did your mom say that? And then I called mom. Mom said, yes, I did. Sure did. That's what mom said. Because, A, B, C, D, doesn't care about my child. Da, da, da. And then we went back and forth about it. And then we had a meeting and ended up apologizing because I made it clear. I said, you know what? This teacher has her education already. It's your child we're caring about. If your child is not respecting the teacher, guess what? You get a job, you don't respect your boss, you lose it. Although we cannot say go because you don't respect your teacher, but it starts right now. And we're very, my leadership style is that I want to tell, our parents the truth in a very nice political way, but the truth must come out. Because sometimes, you have to break it down and bring out what is going on in the community. Here when a child is hitting you, oh, that's okay, you're having a bad day. But out there, you hit somebody and see, your teeth will be rattling. So we let them know that this is very important and we want you to be positive in talking about the school. I know that we're not perfect. As educators, we also have some areas that we're working on. I am sure some people will address it. But it is very, very important for us to share positive experiences from our own school days or stories about friends and family members who enjoy schooling and how we build those relationships from school. If you look at a lot of people now, they will tell you most of their friends that they made from school. So tell them about this thing. Talk about the food that they give them at school. Sometimes, this our students don't appreciate. Oh, you have to eat your veggies. Why do they have to eat? Why do we force? Because the federal government says they must have 3 items on there. We have a hot meal, we have cold meal, we have vegetables, we have fruits, we have milk. So at least out of all the options, we have 3. And why do we emphasize that? Because we want to make sure there's a whole child. Those things nourish the body. And sometimes, like some of the kids will say, we don't have milk at home. We don't have this, we don't have that. And we have found a way, don't say anybody has said that, to have them take some milk home. It's hard to keep it to the end of the day, but sometimes, it does stay so that they can go, when they get home, mom will say, oh, I'm so happy that the school sent milk. Milk nourishes the brain. Milk will help you get smart. Milk will do this and that. You might grow. Oh, some of them want to be athletes. When you ask a lot of our boys, they want to be football players. They want to be athletes. So we say, hey, drink milk. And some of them have taken us up on that. And they're growing very well. Another thing is that address any concerns that you may have. Sometimes when parents come to us, and they're really upset, they start cussing and doing all these things. The kids are, registering those things. It does not make sense. Yeah, we know people get mad and stuff like that, but it is very important for them to talk to us with some respect, I'll say, and we talk to them with respect because we are not only obligated to do that, but it is the professional way to do things. So let them, we can offer reassurance and support and involve them in finding solutions to any problems that we may have. We're not saying that we can solve all problems, but most problems, 9 out of 10, we're able to solve by really looking at things from totally different perspectives. It is important for any concern because there will be concerns, and some parents come right from the first day of school and say, I don't like that teacher. I've heard so many things about that teacher. I don't want my child in that classroom. And when we place children, we look at so many other factors. Sometimes we look at, the dynamics. It's not just the teacher, but who else is in that classroom? Who will be a distraction to that student, especially if they've been together in 2-3 years. So we are constantly studying our students in order for us to place them appropriately. And sometimes when parents come, they don't get along with the teacher, then they do not want the child in that classroom. That classroom might even be the best. Because once teachers know parents have concerns, they try to do their best to make sure that they address them. So it is important. And in terms of interactive school, that's another thing. Because I'm watching the time, I don't want to take anybody else's time. You want to attend orientation and meetings. I know when you see, especially parents of color, I'll say impression that people get is that they are not involved. Sure they are. Very involved. I have never ever thought that our parents do not care about their kids because they don't come to the PTO meeting, they don't come to conferences and everything. But if they can make, the effort to do that. Earlier, my colleague was talking about, having to go to those meetings or go to court if you have to. We know that the state has given every establishment permission to excuse parents for 2 hours or more to attend conferences, to attend meetings, anything relating to students. Another thing that I've noticed with our parents is that they would not give us, if they change their phone, they will not give us any phone number that works. So what I do now, when I call parents and then the number doesn't connect, or they say, this number, you cannot be reached or something, I turn to the child. I know that cell phones are contraband in schools, but I know they have it. I'm like, as long as I don't see it, it's okay. I mean, you have to work with your families and students. So I said, okay, do you know how I can reach your mom? You're not in trouble. Sometimes I negotiate with them and then they give me the phone or they call. And then when they call, I say, okay, just to follow up, since, can I, 9.5 times out of 10, the student's phone number would reach the parents. And that's illegal because once your child is in school, parents hear this. We are obligated to have a way to connect with you. And when you fill those forms, make sure that you have at least 1 or 2 emergency contacts. Because by law, we have your child, we have your precious thing. We definitely want to have a way to reach you. You never know. It's not always for behavior. Sometimes we even call parents and say, hey, Johnny is amazing. Did a fabulous job today. Just wanted you to know. Or Johnny is in the health office, very sick. What do you want us to do? In the past, we would call the ambulance, but now parents say, hey, because they send the bills to the parents. And then sometimes they want us to pay because we are responsible for calling, So now what we do is that we need to reach the parents. This is what's happening. Please, can we, EMT is here and they are ready to take the child. We usually take them to regions because that's St. Paul and it's closest to where a lot of our schools are. Do you want us to do that? They may say, no, I'm coming. But then we hear it, we record it that the parent says, no, they're coming to pick up the child. So there was a time, though, we had a situation where we knew the child was dizzy, could not stand, and breathing was hard. So we made that executive, decision to send the child. And the parent came, I don't have insurance. We're like, okay, then we talked to the social worker, and we found ways to make sure that we support that parent. And that child was well taken care of, even admitted, and they did not see a bill. So there's always ways. And we need to really, establish this communication. And some of you, especially my African parents, brothers and sisters, when they come to Highwood Hills, they see a Black African principal, they want to go to another school. I have your best interest. I'm telling you the truth. Because I understand the culture, I understand the nuances, and others like me understand that you have your child in our care. Every day I go to work, I look at those kids. Now that I'm a grandparent, look at them through the lens of my own grandchildren. What I would not want for them, I would not want for yours. So you have to understand that we have your back as administrators, and we do a lot of decisions. We make a lot of decisions that really support rather than hurt our families. Get involved, get involved, get involved. Attend these meetings. Every school year, we do have our open houses. Students are excited. They see their friends after having been gone for like 2-3 months. And then, we have everything all ready for you. But when you look at who is attending, we don't have a lot of our parents attending. And then the following Monday, when the kids come to school, is that, oh, everybody is ahead because they've already set their desks or their lockers, their notebooks, everything is in order. And some of our kids, do not have that. So we have to take time out of instructing to make sure that they have it. And when you ask them, sometimes we just chat, or the students will tell us, oh, my mom was working, my dad was working. Again, the law will allow you to take up to 2 hours to take care of your child's education. If we have compulsory education, as you've heard earlier, then we also have to make it possible and very, very convenient for our families to attend functions, to be there for their kids, to make sure that when the children need support, we work together. That brings me to partnership. We definitely have to be partners in this business. We cannot be against each other and say that we care about our kids. I love to tell my families that, you are number one cheerleader for this child. That's your precious thing that you brought to us. And we do not take it lightly. We are second. Just think about us as the second cheerleaders of these children. Sometimes we might be first. Don't get me wrong. When the parents are not doing things in the best interest of the child, which happens, as you heard earlier, could be substance abuse or some other things. But genuinely, we know that every parent loves, the kids, and they want the best for them. We do know that, and we believe in it. So you want to stay positive. You want to stay supportive. You want to make sure that, you are working with the school. And even when we call child protection services, which we are mandated reporters. If we see anything and we have reason to believe that's what the law says, then we make that call. If we do not, we'll be breaking the law. And it could be very serious. When teachers come to me, social workers, counselors, their judgment might be different from mine as an African that understands our parents and understands our students, but I will never say don't call. So I'm hoping that they will get people like my brother here who understands the culture and actually the nuances of communication, because sometimes child protective workers, the way they communicate with their families, they go there, they knock down the door, and then they talk to them anyhow. And that creates fear. And that's why you see resistance. So sometimes they come to us. There is a community that we have, is like 22% of my students. Whenever they get anything like the tax papers, they get the IRS or even immigration paper, they come to us, they say, hey, what is it? Because they trust us. And I want that trust. When you send your child to school, be it returning students or brand new students, know that the school is a friend. The school wants you to keep your child. The school wants you to succeed as a parent. And we want our students to succeed too. Because their success really counts on our success, and we are there for them. That's the purpose. Education for a lot of us is not about money, It is really an extension of our life's purpose. And we make sure that we keep that. So it's very, very important for our families to understand that the school is a friend, the school is a home away from home, and the school will back you up. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. Wow. Mr. Ebujo told us that the child protection is your friend, and now Dr. Fatima is saying that the school is your friend. I'm wondering what the police will say about that. The school is your partner. The school is your partner, and the child's development starts from the home, and so we as parents need to be aware of that, and we need to get involved. We've been told that the law allows us up to 2 hours, so we don't have any excuse not to get involved with the school and partner with the school and regarding our children's education. Thank you, Dr. Fatima. If again, please note down your questions. We'll take questions at the end of the presentation. So, Dr. Oni, we are to you. Tell us about mental health and what we need to watch out for regarding our children and what to do.
You know, I'm not sure if mental health is that friendly as the school and the child protection. But we do know that child and student mental health is very important to their learning. And that is where we come from. And when we talk about mental health, a lot of time we kind of use the word mental health and mental illness simultaneously, but there's a difference between mental health and mental illness. We do know that when we talk about mental health, a lot of people just shy away. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it's very friendly, like school and child protection, because people run away, they think they're crazy. And the word craziness is defined by the culture. The culture tells you who is crazy, the culture defines who is good and who is not good. So again, we are dealing with culture that is so complex. And when we look at the child mental health, we also go back to child protection. What happened to child protection? What did they find? Is that related to mental illness? Is that related to mental health? And so a lot of time we need to see how these are intersection. There is an intersectionality of both of these. And that is why it is important that we look at them as a holistic approach. And when we talk about mental health, we are talking about the emotional stability, regulation, psychological, and social well-being of an individual. And if you don't have those things, you cannot learn. And when you look at this and you have them packaged, that is when we say, okay, we have good mental health and not so good mental health. When you are able to have social skill and interact with other students in this classroom and your teacher, then we are saying, yes, you have good mental health. You know that at that point, you can address issues rather than storming out of the classroom. And a lot of time I have issue with the student as well as the teachers myself, because I go to schools and I know this is not the morning to talk about the teachers. We'll talk about how friendly they are this morning. Sometimes, yes, and sometimes they are human beings. And so when they go out of that, then my question remains, is the teacher and the school making school students more mentally ill? That's my question sometimes. But then I see some teachers that say, okay, I always tell the teachers, you can make the life of a student good and you can make it miserable. And that is why sometimes we need to balance this relationship. When kids see you as a drill sergeant in the classroom, they don't learn. They say, here goes this teacher. I know when we were students too in school, in university, we don't learn certain teachers that don't give good grades. We say, oh, don't take this teacher. Oh, don't take this professor. So again, we have a mindset. And so when students got this from their parents, they come to class with a mindset that this teacher will not teach me anything good. And so they're not going to listen. And then we talk about teachers sometimes when they don't let anything go. Dr. Lawson talk about how they do things to make it happen. That's a research in Australia about what it takes to make teacher conferences possible. Some teachers will meet the students if they know they go to the same church, they will meet after church. If they go to the same market, they will see them there and talk about the student because they cannot meet on those traditional times that is said. And so it's called whatever it takes to make teacher conference possible. So when I talk about mental illness, I look at it in a way that is very holistic. And we see that, especially after COVID, we have a very high percentage of youth mental illness. Percentage of youth suicidal ideation and also following through. We have record of that in school system. And again, it has to do with the environment. Competition to make good, to be good in classroom. Competition to say, okay, I'm passing the exam. And then the overload of work load that some students are not prepared to do. And so this resulted into a lot of depression. They become so depressed that they cannot catch up. And so as parents, we need to be able to have time, even if you are not the one that know algebra or any of those things, but give these students opportunity to talk about what is going on. Talk about it after school. How did the school go for you today? What did you achieve? A lot of time people just say, oh, how is school today? That's not enough. That's not telling anything. Ask them specific questions. What did you do with your teacher? How did your teacher approach it? So give people some time, a way to describe that. And a lot of time we are not looking at the signs and symptoms of our children. Hey, this is a kid that's always having A class, A grade in the classroom, in English and this and that. And just of a sudden, last semester, she was struggling to have a C. And people are saying, well, it's the work of the teacher. Maybe that teacher they have this semester is not good. Well, there's more to that. And so parents need to look at why are these people going down from A to C and even struggling? Again, it has to do with the way this kid is behaving at that time, the mental illness, the mental situation and the stage, especially the newcomers. We have newcomers and we have old people that are in school. The newcomers need more attention. The newcomers need adjustment issues that they are facing. A majority of the newcomers have post-traumatic stress that is happening to them, PTSD trauma. And so a lot of time the newcomer need attention in the school and as well as the parent. That is the time that the parent need to be more involved with the student as well as the school because they are newcomer. We all know that school is the first window of interaction with any immigrant population or refugee. School, they spend more time in school, 6 hours in the daytime, if not more, especially if you go to after school and all those things. So that is why their mental illness and their mental health is important, so that we know that. And a lot of time when we find out something is not right, maybe the kids cannot stand straight. Maybe, sometimes we say, oh, he has ADHD, he's gonna grow out of it. People don't grow out of those things without giving them attention and really know what that is. And we can say we can beat it out of them. But when they get to the age of 20, are you going to still beating this out of them? No. That is why it is important that we address them, not in a punitive way. And that is one of the issues when it comes to mental illness. Our people shy away and we do not want to deal with it. Dr. Lawson mentioned a principle that is principle of color. How people will shy away because, you know why? It's not because they cannot teach, it's because they feel the gossip syndrome that the principal may know about them. That is that, I call it community gossip syndrome. Oh, this principal from Nigeria know that my kid is suffering from ADHD. I will not go there.
Yeah,
I will go to the people that I will not meet in the market. I will go to the people that I will not meet in the party time or graduation time. So that is why we hide away. That is one of the reasons why we cannot do well with each other. We do community gossip syndrome. And later on, when it's no longer gossiping and become public, we say, oh, is that what is happening? Even in our community, we have youth suicide issues and people did not know. In other communities, I was involved in 2 communities in the last 2 months. Two kids, youth from school, high school, died of suicide. And the parents were there to talk about it. Simple thing that people got involved with their kids that causes this depression is very important. One parent described to me that the son who was 18 said he didn't have hair in the head. And he said, you have hair in your head? He said, no, it's not long enough. So because of that, this boy did not go to school for weeks. He said people are making joke of him. And so sometimes we parents would think, oh, you have roof over your head, you have food at home. Why are you depressed? Well, you are not sure. All those bully behavior in school, the approaches, the issues of the student themselves is another problem that parents need to address. Do not just think, oh, my kid is just going out of school. It's not. There's more to giving them food, roof over their head, and that's not meeting their emotional need. How do we get out to do that? It is important to know the statistics about those things are very important. 50% of mental health problems are established by the age of 14. We have some that are established at the age of 3, because those are things that happen. What is going on here? I'm seeing something on my screen that it doesn't belong to me. Who is this person? Excuse me. I see something on my screen. Are you guys seeing the same thing I'm seeing? I hope I'm not hallucinating, but this is, I'm just seeing things that no other people is seeing. That is not good. But anyway, when we did talk about this issue with parents sometimes, they say, oh, I don't know why they're depressed. And I'm saying, well, you know, I will give some reasons and areas that people need to look at, and they say, well, okay, if that is the case, I don't know what to do about that. I say, well, I can give you an idea of what to do. And a lot of times people just fight and disapprove of what you are seeing as a clinician. And so it is important that we know those things. 77% of students experience some kind of psychological distress and stressor. That's very high. And that is why it is important to have community conversation about student mental illness and mental health. Because if we don't talk about it now, those are the issues that will lead kids to some other expensive situation, even the correction. Some kids get out and become, juvenile detention issues occur. When they run out of school and they're not in school system, they got into another issues that parents cannot even handle. So it is important that we give this as an attention. 54% of kids experience loneliness. Even in the middle of media that they are there 24/7, they are still lonely. How do we deal with that? You see your kid at the age of 14 or 12, they have this expensive cell phone, yet they are lonely. And so how do we deal with that? That loneliness alone is what leads people or kids to have this suicidal ideation. They live in the multitude, but yet they are lonely. There is a difference between loneliness and isolation. You can be lonely and not be isolated. And you can be isolated and not lonely. So people need to know the differences. So some of these kids, they are living in a lonely experience. They are lonely because the parents are not interacting. They don't have time to interact with good friends. Whoever is out there, whether bad or good, is their friend. And those friends are not giving them enough support. So they are not fulfilled by those things. How do we deal with those things? As parents, we need to show some sign of caring. I know no parent will say, I don't care for my kid, but there are situations that they themselves is beyond them. Especially when we say, I give them cell phone, they can call me, they can do this, they can do that. When you are even talking to them in the kitchen or dinner time, they are looking at their phone messages. Yet they are still lonely. That is their complaint. They complain of being lonely. That's a serious situation here that we need to take a look at. And sometimes when they come at home, they cannot sleep at night. Some kids have phone under their pillow, and parents don't even know that. So in the morning, they are dragged to go to school or completely miss school, and later on end up in child protection, end up in the school system. So you can see all these three are so interwoven, and we have to deal with them. And when we talk about our African people, we have issue with them in the sense that sometimes we cannot blame them because what you don't know, you cannot teach what you don't know. And a lot of time, from where we come from, we still carry them here. The belief system, nothing happens without something. No African woman or mother will agree that their son fell from the ladder, from the ladder, climbing ladder and failed, but they never believe that you can miss your steps. It's something that happened that caused that to happen. So there's always causation. And so when your kid is not doing well, it's either one family doesn't like you, and so they took it on your child in school so that they cannot do well and bring shame to you. And so all these terminologies, all these situations that we find ourselves, it's very important to not disclose that with our kids. Our kids need to have an open mind. We know that sometimes the kids themselves cannot help it. They cannot help themselves. So why we blame them for their illness? We don't blame people with diabetes as their illness or cancer for their illnesses. But then we blame kids that this kid is just not listening to them, is not following instruction, is destructive to the family. And so we blame the victim. So we have to stop blaming those kids and look at the kids and see something positive about them. I remember when my daughter was going to school, when she finished high school, she did not apply to any school around here. And I said, oh my goodness, where is she going to go to school? So suddenly she got admission in some school in Boston. I said, Ashley, why Boston? She said, well, that's where I want to go. I asked her 5 questions to convince me. Well, he said, that school is a very small school. I said, okay, where she finished high school is a small private school called Mounts Park Academy. Maybe it's not ready for a bigger school. That's number 2. Number 1, I said, number 2, how are you going to get along there? Because this is your first time of living home. And now you're going to be in the dormitories with more than 2 persons. He said, I will do that. So all the 5 questions, they answered very well. I said, okay, we dive into it. Before the end of 1 semester, she's agonizing to leave. And I'm saying, over my dead body. No way. After spending 1 year tuition, you want to leave without finishing the semester? I said, it won't happen. Of course, this become an issue. So later on, I said, what's going on there? I flew down there. I look at the environment. They are sharing bathroom dorm with boys and girls, and it's not used to all those things. I said, well, you know what? Sorry, you are already here. Now, I did support her all the time throughout. Every week, every month, I called her. She was so happy to come home for Thanksgiving, the 1st semester. Well, she got to Chicago. There was a big snow. She couldn't drive. She couldn't fly back. I said, oh, my goodness. She lost her passport, American passport. I have to send Nigerian passport to her because she was so excited to come home. She forgot her passport when she went to visit another kid. So all I'm saying here is this. I gave her all the support to just manage to finish that 1 semester as well as 1 year. And then she was okay. And finally, she applied to UW-Madison. But throughout that time, if I didn't give her enough support, say, I pay your tuition, I pay this, I pay that, tough on you, you know what? She get more depressed. She was able to think twice and found a better school for herself and for her need. So when we have kids in school, parents need to support them. Whatever they are complaining to you about, find a way to support them so that you don't increase their mental illness. You don't increase their anxiety. The most important and the most pronounced mental illness among students is anxiety. Anxiety. They're always anxious. And when kids are anxious, they cannot learn. And so you do not aggravate their anxiety issues. As parents, we need to listen to the kid. Even if you believe that environment is good enough, they are the one who is experiencing it. Don't dictate you have to be engineer, you have to be medical doctor. All those things happen and causes a lot of mental illness, and causes of imbalanced mental health for the kid. So that's area that is important for people to know. I do have one other thing I want to talk about, the conversation about mental illness. If your kid is saying this is how they feel, try not to dismiss it. See a therapy. See your spiritual pastor. Talk to these people. Do not undermine how kids are feeling. When you do that, that is when they say nobody cares. Nobody cares about my feeling too. They want me to care about other people, but nobody care about me. So it is important that we look at those things when it's happening to our kids. And I know that there are the kids' mental health disorders, the key facts are very important. 1 out of 5 students are affected. 1 out of 5. That's very high. And that is why we need to take this very seriously. And we need to make sure that even when they take their medication to school, I like the way things have been done now than before. The medication and the nurse's room, and the kids can go in during their own time to take their medication. Before, they carry their medication along with themselves in the 90s. So things were very rough that time. The kids are not taking their medication. As parents, if they are really on medication, please keep that medication. Do not cut the medication into half. Because even in Africa, if you go to a place and they don't give you medication or injection, that doctor is not good. But now when we come to America, we are so guarded about not taking medication, about nursing therapies, about different things that we used to do. What happened? We over thought about America. We need to know that. I just talked to somebody who said, oh no, my son does not need to take this medication. Later on, the son have what we call become hallucinated to the point where he start stabbing people around. Now, why? Just because they refuse. We did some training one time among another community in Brooklyn Park. This man kept asking me questions. I was in the church. So my other partner said, Dr. One, you need to listen to this guy. The kind of question he's asking, there's more to it. I did not probe enough. 5 days later, a 24-year-old daughter committed suicide. This was about 2 years ago. So this man did not come out to say this is what is going on, but I kept just answering those questions on the face value, not knowing there's more to it. And that is why the teacher also need to know. I know their own is education to teach this, but if you teach somebody and they are not learning and something is happening, we need to see the underneath issues instead of not being able to learn. And so I'm not saying they're all clinicians, but find out from your student how they are feeling before, how they used to attend to things, and just all of a sudden they're hiding away. So this parent, I felt so bad. So every time I do training now in those churches, anybody asking me so many questions, after I call them out to say, let's talk about your question last time. I don't think I answered them well enough so that I can get to know more, because other people were there and so it's not telling me the detail. I kept answering them on the face value. So your student may be telling you certain things, or your child may be telling you issues that you know this is not right. So try to probe, how can I help you? What can I do about this? Do not say, are you okay? They say, oh, I'm okay. No. What is okay then? What does okay really mean? Are you this? Are you this? Are you that? And so it is important to talk about youth mental health, especially now that this social media has its own merit and demerit, especially on our kids. They are very lonely. You think they are very with the group, but they are not. They may be talking to you, they are looking sideways. One corner of their eyes is on their phone. And if you are not watching, you won't know. So that is why I'm challenging us to be able to make sure, as parents, as teachers, let's be more observant and aggressive about the way we see those kids. Now, I just want to conclude to say causes of mental illness among the kids is the same thing among the adults. The biological factor has a problem with that. Adverse child experiences. Many of our kids experience adverse issues. From womb, some kids have been depressed from womb. That's why they call it sometimes they have postpartum distress. Also happen to the kids when their mom's womb. And so don't underestimate at the age of any type of illness. Our job is to be more observant and be watchful about those things. I know there's going to be more questions, and if you want me to continue, I will continue, but I say for now, I will hold off. What I can say, the takeaway here for parents here is that there is no health without mental health. Mental illness can be complex and disabling, but there is always hope in recovery. Be attentive to your early warning signs of your children. When they cannot eat well, when they are not sleeping well, when every time you say something, they just lash out. Those things are signs. Those are early symptoms. They are not eating. They are not sleeping. They are not friendly, even to you or to a friend. Things that they used to do before, they just don't like it anymore. Those are early warning signs. Be attentive to those early warning signs. Do not be ashamed to reach out for help, for early intervention. Always see mental illness as any other illness, like diabetes, cancer, or others, physical illness. Talk to your pastor, to your close friends, to your family members that you think is not going to be. Don't always look at mental illness as a gossip syndrome that people experience it. Because when it's no longer gossip, it becomes public and people blame you. Say, how come you didn't talk to us about this? This thing has been happening. Then you become ashamed of yourself. So these are very good takeaway. After today, if anybody wants to talk to me about this, I am open and I will not even charge you. See, thank you. I'm friendly too.
Thank you, Dr. Oni. Thank you, Dr. Oni. We have professionals in our community that are open and willing to listen and guide us. Please, let's use them. Let's use them. If you need their contact information, I want to discuss with them further, please let me know. Mental health is real. Our parents, we need to be observant, attentive to the changes in our children's behavior, and then seek help. There is no shame in mental health. Mental health is part of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of us. Just like we have physical health, we also have mental health. Just like we have spiritual health, we also have mental health. So please, let's not shy away from it. Thank you, Dr. Oni. If you have any question, please put them in the chat. We are receiving some questions in the chat, and that's good. Please put them there. If you are not comfortable sending it through the chat and you want to discuss with any of the speakers, please let us know. I'm not going to ask you why you want to talk with them. I will gladly give you their contact information. Now we want to listen to what the role of the church in supporting our children and their parents in the education. Dr. Femi Akane.
Well, I think they've said a lot of things that has been very great. When these children started this session, one thing everybody that comes to this church noticed that after church service, the first people to see me in my office are the children, because I give them fruit snacks. They come, some of them, they said they employ themselves as my secretary. So we start talking. And one thing I noticed that those that transition from one school to the another, like elementary to middle school or middle school to high school, sometimes they go to a different school that they don't feel connected. So I don't have friends there. So I try to say, well, encourage them. You make an approach and make friends, find friends there, make yourself comfortable, know you are the son of or daughter of a king, just show yourself. And with time, things will ease out. And another thing that I've been doing is that every year I announce, especially those in the high school and college, that if they score straight A's in their first trimester, they get monetary reward. And the college, the first semester, they get monetary reward. And it has really, really been helpful. Most of them have been doing very well. Some of them say, oh, please, I had A- or B+ in one of the subjects. Can I negotiate? To encourage them, I negotiate. I don't give them the total amount. I negotiate. Okay, but next time, if you fall below, I'm not giving you. And they will come out, the second trimester came, some of them were able to knock score all it. So it's an incentive I've been doing to encourage our children to do well. And it's been proven very, very helpful. Those who haven't scored say, Pastor, next time I must be there. So that's one of the things I do. And also there are some of them that really need somebody to help them, to gear them, like giving them role models. Those that have gone through the high school that were born here, I connect them with some of them that are finding it difficult, or I notice some difference in them. Say, these people can be your role model. They will be encouraging them, then letting them know what to do. So that's another way of getting, because in the church, you can have different people that can help others that are struggling. I, myself, there was a case of one of our members left this church many years ago. Son was struggling with chemistry, and having been a college teacher for long before in chemistry, he said when she was in nursing school, I helped her, so this son should come to me. And I gave him a tutorial for about an hour or so. You know, most of them fear organic chemistry. And with it, the boy, after giving him the basic, was able to catch up and did very well before he was failing. So there are some of the things in those areas I can help them to, especially when it comes to chemistry or other subjects. I try to get them to feel free to come to me and help them. And also, one thing that is very important, which I've noticed now, is that balancing their education with church activities. Not to be too carried away by, they need to get close to God, but not all the time. When you have your assignment due, you have not done it, and you want to use the church activity as a cover. I discovered that recently, so I have to be following up. Before you get engaged in this and that in the church, have you done your assignment? Is it complete? So we as a church, we want these children to get close to God, to learn. But at the same time, we need to help them to balance church activity with the education. There was a case back then, this was in Nigeria, you know how they carried religion. I had a student who was their head, the leader of the fellowship in the Faculty of Pharmacy. I used to tell this girl, hey, go and read, but believing that, oh, prayer, I say prayer, I've been through it, prayer alone. Even the Bible says faith without works is dead. At the end of it, the girl came out with third class and said, God disappointed her. I said, no, God did not disappoint you. You disappointed yourself. So we have situations. So every time we need to get the students to, especially the youth and young adults, when they're on fire for God, make sure that they balance education with their spiritual growth. And one thing I also noticed as the session started is that especially those going to college the first time is relationship. You know, when they are in that range, 18, 20, is when to start thinking about boyfriend, girlfriend, and so on. And some of them can't handle it well. It causes a lot of distraction, that somebody that you expect to be doing well now coming up with D and so on. At times, it takes a long time to recognize it. I can follow their grades, but when the parents come say, this is what you are observing, then we sit there and talk, call the boy, find out that at that age, we are still dealing with a case like that. At that age, the student cannot deal with relationship. There are students who can handle it, but at the same time, I also tell them, let the focus be your education first. after your education, then you can be thinking about some other things. Some, it may not be relationship. I have one like that keeps on procrastinating. Withdrew from college. I will go back next time. I will go back next semester. It's almost a year now, and now it's I want to change college. As a pastor, I try to follow them up. And there are instances I know that this is not ordinary. It's more ordinary, it's spiritual. So not only counseling, the person needs prayer. And we have to be on top of it to pray for the student and to keep on praying for them so that you know that at the end of the day, what you want is that we want the best for them and for their parents to be happy. There are situations that some students have, some of our children or the young adults or youth have reported of like bullying, feeling incompetent, feeling like they are below par. I use the word of God to encourage them. Some of them have been able to prove themselves. The scripture I use most is Philippians 4:13. I can do all things through Christ that strengthens me. You are more than Romans 6:2. I'm more than a conqueror. See yourself as a winner. See yourself as don't let people define you. When they define you and you look at it, you feel down, but see yourself that you can do it. And truly, some of them have come out with prayer that they know they've been able to overcome such things. And last but not the least, as a pastor, always try and pray for them and pray with them. There is nothing prayer cannot do. And I always encourage parents to continually pray with their children because prayer goes a long way. And also, more importantly, there are some of these students, maybe because of the African culture, there are things they will be struggling with. They cannot tell their parents. There was a case in time, I have to ask the parent to go out so that they can open up to me. And because I've had such a similar situation back, even in Nigeria, there was a lady in that faculty of pharmacy. She failed an exam. That time you have to resit. The father was a former commissioner, came back, said, a day before the receipt exam, said, my daughter is sick, she cannot take the exam. So what can we do? I said, there's the university regulation. You take it the next available time. So when is that? Next session. So you repeat a session, that's what it says. And I say, I cannot change university regulation. The daughter came the following day. It was my course. Maybe 1 mark or below the 2 or so below the pass mark. I passed there. So the following year, the mother came, said, this is your daughter. And what I did was that in all the courses, I got people, because they know, in Nigerian situation, they don't just do that because they know that the girl is safe with me. But what happened was that in the final year, there is a course they take, they call it pharmacy laws. You can take it throughout the course, only you must pass it before you graduate. He has been failing it, I didn't know. So the results came, I saw everything pass, I said pharmacy law, I said, she was even rejoicing until that exam results, they couldn't graduate. She was so down, crying in the house and everybody. The father can't talk to her, the sisters can't talk, the mother can't talk. So I was the only one. So they called me to the house. I went to the house. I asked them to leave me and her alone in a room. And after talking, I came out with a solution. Yeah, I know repeating a whole year, just staying here will be boring for you. You have sisters in London. I will cover your, go and meet your sisters. 2 months before the exam comes, we will coach you, you will pass. And that's what I did. She will have gone, the mental distress will have been very terrible if I haven't taken that approach. And she was able to pass very well. She had 80, so very well in the African distance, that was an A+.
Wow.
So there are ways you can handle these students to let them go get over some problems that they're encountering in their studies. I think I will stop here for now.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akane. We're impressed with what you are doing with the students. There seems to be a clash of mental health and spiritual. So Dr. Oni told us that some people feel that things are as a result of some people in the village. And Dr. Akane said, yeah, it's possible that that's so that's a question for another day. So we have these questions here. Thank you, our speakers. We have a question. If you had a magic wand, what is one thing that will support the parents? Anyone can take the question.
Maybe the school.
Yes,
I was going to say that if I had the magic wand, one thing that would support the parents, from my very humble opinion, is, the means for them to be able to support their kids outside of what school is able to do. So you just heard what Dr. Akoni said about that child. As he was talking, I was thinking about a typical child in our school. That child has parents that could afford to send her to London to stay for that number of, and then come back, maybe clear her mind and everything. So if I had the magic wand, give the parents the resources, because we are working on an uneven playing field. And when you thought, okay, I just came back from DC. Let me just tell you this story. I am the state legislative chair for the principals, and every year we go to DC to beg for money. I call it beg because it is sometimes very, very, in my opinion, embarrassing to go and be begging all these legislators that came to you and you voted for them. So after you go through the security, in there, all the staffers, the people who really make the decisions, they're all white or well suited up, I'll say young people. So we will ask them, we make it a point to ask them, okay, where did you go to school? Because we meet the Minnesota delegates and everything. They went to Wayzata, they went to one of the schools that Tony mentioned earlier. They go to Blake, they go to all these things. None of them say they go to, our school. Oh, no, I take it back. One went to Central. And of course, for those of you who know St. Paul, Central is like a cream of the whatever. It is very, very important to see that the resources are not there for our families to compete with the regular, I'll say affluent families. And that is creating a gap for our kids. Now our children can wear their hats, they can sag their pants, they can speak anyway, use 4-letter words and everything. But you know what? You can't do it in those places. So are we preparing them to be those leaders? And the parents have to. Let me also launch on something that Dr. Oni said, because I didn't want to put it in the chat. And this is a good question to follow up and help answer this magic wand question. So thanks to the person who asked that. Dr. Oni did say that we should find ways to support our children so that we do not aggravate their situation. So as parents, at what time do we hold them accountable? Because this is what's happening to our children. Trust me. We are saying, we can't do this. We don't want to anger them. We don't want to annoy them. And then some of them, even if they don't have, mental health issues that are diagnosed, they are slipping through the cracks and they are not able to get there. So we want resources for our families to be able to combat the pandemic, the trauma that is going through us as parents, because we are losing it. We do not have control. As I would say, and control, I use it very lightly. We do not have the authority to raise our children the way that we think we should. Okay? We do not have either the resources or the mental capacity also to do what we need to do. There are parents who have told me, when we talk about medication, because you did say about that, I know medication now is really different from what it used to be. Ritalin and all those things, they will even send the kids more to the madhouse. But now they have done a lot of research and they are better. They keep them focused so that they can learn. So I have changed my mindset about medication. Medication is great, but some of these things cost a lot of money, and there are some of our families who are totally against it. So what kind of education are we giving them to talk about the importance of some of these things so that we can do the job of educating our children and setting them up for success? So that magic wand is the right resources for our families, be it money, be it support systems that they need in order to help us raise our future leaders.
Very
Thank
good.
you. Thank you. Another question is, if anything, what is one thing you can do or say to encourage a kid to go to school?
Well, I'll jump in because we dealt with this issue, and I know that Dr. Akoni mentioned that he incentivizes them. They come to him and then he gives them. Right now, I'll tell you this. Dr. Oni might also, agree with me on this. Our children, I don't know whether it's something in the water or whatever, they are extremely motivated. But in my time, you tell me good job, that's a lot. That's enough to make me do my work. But now it's like, good job, what's in it for me? Like one student I said, my gosh, I'm so happy, I've not seen you all week. He said, okay, can I get a Hugs box? Hugs box is like the fake money, but they use it to buy real things. I'm like, wow, how can we really raise our children so that they are intrinsically motivated? They do not ask for anything but the joy of learning, the joy of knowing that there's somebody there that wants you to succeed. What I tell them, if you become a president tomorrow, I'll be very happy, but I'm not going to ask you to share your money with me. Wow, this was my former student. And I've done it a lot with students that go through, us. We want to make sure that, we encourage them if we can. I know that it's hard. If we can, let them be intrinsically motivated because we don't always have the resources to satisfy. There are parents saying, if your principal doesn't call me for a week, I'll get you. What's the latest phone? I don't even know. One of the students told me, but I was like about the consequence. That's what they promised, that for 1 week only. So let us find ways to let them know that, you are doing this, one for you, two for the family, and then for your community. It is important. We could give incentives, don't get me wrong, but that should not be the main thing. We encourage them for the value of gaining an education and having a life that is a lifetime of happiness, of success, of satisfaction. Instead of saying, okay, for this moment, you get an A+, here's a check. You get a B+, here's a smaller check, and all those things. We also have to really stop doing that. We do it a lot at school, I'm not lying. Even our store now, where they have the Hug box. Hugs is our, our mascot. And it is becoming like some of those students who can really, really control themselves and be good. They are the ones earning money to shop. What about those other kids who who maybe have mental illness and all those other things that we are not talking about? Because to really get a student into special education is a big deal. There was a time the state nailed my district that we are over-identifying. And then because of that, many kids are slipping through the cracks. And the only thing we do is to give them candy so that they can sit for 1 minute. So we have to stop a lot of the expensive motivators and do the intrinsic motivators.
We use that type of thing. We call it token economy. And that is what we use a lot for special ed. When kids are inconsistently behaving inconsistently, we get to do something that we call token economy, whereby we just buy things and different things that they're able to. So all kids like reinforcement. All kids like to be told that they're doing well. And I think that's one of the things that we are forgetting, that those are very good incentive that they're doing well because they have not been told that. And we know in African culture, we don't really hug or do this because we assume That is your job to be in school. And over here, we have that luxury that you don't have to if you are above certain age. And so we do know that we need to have incentive. We need to pay more attention. And even when they come to school, we need to appreciate what they do in school because they love to showcase when they are doing well. No kids like to be told that, and a lot of time we use punishment. No kids learn under punishment. We can use consequences. There's a difference between punishment and consequence. And a lot of time we do not use that because that is what we are used to. We used to, if we are not in school, this is what's going to happen. And so a lot of time we just have to be more nurturing. That doesn't mean we are spoiling kids. When I hear people say people are spoiled, we need to define that. Nobody spoiled kids. We need to find that out. The way that we look at it in our own field, that kids need to be nurtured. Back home, when you are 40, you are still at home. Over here, when you are 18, you are encouraged to be driven out, unless you are from this culture that really nurture you. And so, kids would voluntarily kick themselves out anyway. But again, if there's any magic thing we can do for those kids, especially kids with mental illness, we need to nurture them and we need to accept their illness and work with them on it because it's real and it's curable. So it's not something that is not curable. It is a matter of managing it. You get to manage the illness of the kids in school. When they have that depression and the attitude of saying, hopelessness, what is left for me? I'm getting C grade or F grade. And they say, hey, you know what? You can still do better. You're okay. So we need to give that encouragement. Word of encouragement carries them a long time. The school system here, when I hear people say, oh, the parents don't care. People back home, they fetch water and firewood to send kids to school. And here you don't have to do that. How can someone say now you don't care? So I dismiss that idea. I used to say, this kid don't know. Those parents, American people don't know that back home, we do fetch water and firewood and everything to send our kids to school because we believe there is hope after education. And that is why we need to nurture those kids. And especially when they are going through things in school that we don't know. The bully, the microaggression among the students themselves, the microaggression from the teachers themselves. So these kids are going through a lot. So they need your support emotionally. Thank you.
I think also I want to chip in that sometimes they need tough love. Because if you give them everything that they need, they tend to relax. Some students need tough love. I have to do it for one of my children. I know they did it for me too when I was small. I was good, but I would be running away from hiding somewhere until they gave me a tough beating. Beating me up. Some students really, when you make things too comfortable for them, it's like everything is easy in life. Who talk about, I think it's Dr. Fatima, to let them know your own story. That is everything. The world is not a bed full of roses. How you struggle in life. If you let them know that education has helped you out, then they will know. So sometimes these children, I believe some of them need tough love. If you make things too comfortable for them, some of them will assume and then they don't take things serious. So tough love helps. Surprisingly, well, that you can't do that here. There was back in the there was a professor of medicine back at UCH then. His son was in the medical school, but the father said was disgracing failing. One day the boy moved from the main house to the boys' quarters and was just partying with his friend. He put on his shorts and t-shirt, went to him. Now, let's fight. You are disgracing me. If I hit you, if you want to hit me, it was a talk. He did hell. The next time the boy changed. The boy changed, but you can't do that here. So what I'm saying is that a means of a tough love sometimes helps the children when they are not pulling their weight. It's good to encourage them, and it's also good sometimes to show them tough love.
Pastor, I like the tough love. We need to define that because a
Yes.
lot of time,
Yes, we need to define tough love.
because a lot of time, what happens is, like I mentioned, there's a consequence and there's punishment. Nobody learn under punishment. And so we need to try to see the tough love we are talking about is more from the consequential type of approach rather than punishment.
Punishment, yeah.
That is what I'm trying to say. There's a difference between that punitive approach. That becomes, you can really get people's mind be stoned. A lot of our kids at home, when they get those different tough love rather than just consequence, they say, okay, I'm used to this. I remember when we were in school, when they used things to beat us, we put something under our butt so that the lashes will not reach our body. And they think they have done something wrong to us. So we have a way to go around that tough love that is really punitive. And so I don't know, when I was in school, I usually go out to play soccer on the street. I will not pound, I will not do a good ball, I will not do any of those things. The goat will be taking things and I will not have time to stay away the goat. And then in the evening, I don't come home to look for food because I already know the consequence. That since I didn't do any home chore, forget the food. I will not ask either. And so this kind of thing is different.
So,
okay. We also want to
I have something to say.
We want to distinguish between need and want, is to give them all they want. I think that's what Dr. Kanin meant, not what they need. Because we have Mr. Ibujo here to let us know there's that may go into neglect,
What they need.
He wants to talk.
What they need is not what they want.
Not what they want. That's what I'm saying.
What they need. Yeah.
So I have a question here for.
Dr. Ibujo wants to talk.
No, I was listening with interest and I said, you guys seem to be forgetting that I'm sitting right here listening. You have to be careful. There is a category that is called emotional abuse.
Oh.
That child who is receiving that tough love can quickly, turn it into emotional abuse. Though it's hard to prove, but it will sure, disrupt the family. Yes. We have to be careful. There's a fine and thin line, when you do that discipline and give that tough love. For instance, as a parent, you have the right to discipline your child any way you see fit. However, you cannot leave any marks of bruises. If you do, then you leave me the room to have to interpret if what you have done is malicious or not. So we have to be very, very, very careful. Yeah. And also, it depends on the emotional state of the child that you're trying to give tough love. When you give that tough love and the child perceives that love to be that they are being emotionally abused, and once they are expressing that, you can be sure that child protection will act. So we have to really, really be careful and define balance.
I have a question for you, Mr. Ibujo. What happens if one parent has a problem like drugs and the other one doesn't? How would you handle such a case?
Well, yes, very good question. So we'll come across that all the time. As long as the other parent is aware that this other parent has drug problems, and that parent is willing to support the other parent to, get treatment, and the parent concerned, admits to himself or herself that I have a problem and it's time for me to get treatment. So one big problem that you face with drug use is when that individual is not ready for treatment. I've seen people that have been to treatment more than 20 times and they're still using. Until they are ready and say, I want to stop. that treatment begins to have meaning in their lives. So usually it quickly gets to the point where the other parent will have to, make a choice. The other parent or my child. If this other parent continues to use, then some of the safety plan will be that parent, the children or the child will now be left in the care of that parent that is using. Puts a lot of other, more weight on the parent, especially if the parent that is not using is the one that is employed, the one that is doing everything, and the other one is at home. So the parent that is not using will not be able to use the parent that is using to babysit. Will not be able to leave the kids home alone with that. So it's very tricky stuff, and at the end, most parents will be forced to go to treatment. So the first thing will be chemical dependency evaluation. Will be the first thing that will be offered to that parent to determine if the drug use has gotten to the point where they need treatment and what kind of treatment. So, and we approach it that way, as long as the other parent agrees that this parent has a problem. So they tend to be proactive in protecting the child or the children from the parent that is using. And I've seen instances where the other parent to child protection comes and say, "Oh, I've been waiting for you people to come." And then they muster enough courage to say, if you are not going to go to treatment, you have to leave the house. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for Dr. Fatima.
Okay.
Is there anything parents can do to help kids manage the high teacher turnover that is happening in the schools?
Help us recruit. They could be recruiters too. Because when I have had a situation like I'm sure now, there are positions that are not used now. There are positions that are used. I'm hearing two voices. Maybe Dr. Oni's effect on me. Maybe
yes, it is such an echo.
Yes, echoing.
It is such an echo.
What happened?
I say that the only way that I think parents can help us is to help us be recruiters as well. Because they're out there in the community, they know people, and you know what? I would not prefer anybody that I know is not good enough for my child to a school.
Anybody that I know is not good enough.
The child might be with that person. I have had a few parents who have
be with that person. I have had a few parents who have
this is echoing this kind of disturbing.
Yeah, maybe we should all mute our phone. Maybe we should all mute our phone.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's better. Thank you so much. So what happens is that when I have parents who have referred to me, either in the community or where they work, I have always had success hiring them if they are qualified, because we have a lot of limitations. You have to be so licensed in the area. And if you're not licensed, we have a test that you could take, say it's a paraprofessional position, which is an area that we really hire a lot more. With the teacher position, those ones are very sensitive and they are difficult. And we do thorough investigation. We do background checks, etc., reference checks, everything possible to get people into the classroom. So the way parents can help is to please send us people. Refer to us. And we love it. And they can also, parents, volunteer. That's a good way to come into the school building and see what's going on. And sometimes, like I have really supported a lot of families to get into the profession. I just hired somebody from our country and has been doing some job. I am like, wait a minute, you have all this qualification. Another thing that is really preventing our people from, let's say our immigrant families, is the fear of evaluating their certificates. I know Nigeria is difficult now. You cannot get your transcript. Sometimes you go in person and that's expensive. And then when you bring the transcript, even though it's in English, they still require you to go and evaluate it with either education, credential, evaluators in Wisconsin, which I would not advise because sometimes they look down on some of our certificates. They'll give a bachelor's degree, a postgraduate diploma. And when we see diploma, it doesn't measure up to at least a bachelor's, so they don't consider it. But then the New York one, World Education Services West, I have the information. They are better. They are more international. they understand the value of universities and may give you a better evaluation. So those things are another thing that, you know, parents could do. Once you know you have a bachelor's degree from your country, please, even if you're not looking for a job, send it to West or ECE, if you will, and then let them evaluate it anytime you are applying for jobs, because it does take time. Then just tell them, send it to St. Paul Public School, send it to this, send it to that. And that's how you get in. So I have somebody now that we've hired about 4 months ago, still could not get the transcript from the home country. So I have to dismiss, because after March 15, then it's hourly. You can't get benefits or anything like that. And then after the end of March, then we cancel it, move it on to the next year. So we have a lot of our families, you know, immigrants, super educated, who could do a great job, but that fear is there. Okay, my credentials are not in order. And then even when you come here with a PhD, know that to teach, even in elementary school, you need more education. You have to go to school 36 credit to get your license, to be so licensed to teach. And then you do some other courses that would like human relations, multicultural, gender fair, disability, all those things, you know, aware. So there's a lot that's put on our plate. But the more we have our families coming to us to look for a job, the better we are, because they know what the expectations are, they know where the kids want to be, and they would really, really work with fidelity. So that's it. Let us just get them to volunteer. And if they know anybody in the community, send them to us. And then I take my time to really talk to our people, you know, immigrants, if they really want to teach. It's a great profession. Don't get me wrong. And then let me put a pitch. I know everybody talk about money, money, money. Money is not everything. For a teacher in the public school system, I'm not talking about charter because it's different. They work 7 hours a day. They are heavily guarded by the union. They have paid lunch. They have 50 minutes, preparation time. Kids are with us for 6.5 hours. And then they have summers off. They have spring break. They have 2 days in October. And if they do anything outside, even we cannot tell them to do things without paying or negotiating with them. In addition, they have a pension. They have a 403B. They draw from at least 4 accounts when they retire. They retire better than any other sector. You can think about it. A teacher, when I got my PhD before I got into teaching, my startup check was higher than all the universities that gave me jobs. So let us stop talking about this poverty that is driving our people from the profession. Very noble profession. And I always say thank you for your service, because that is the way to go in order for us to infuse and get the right mindset. Because I'm not lying, some of the people we're getting, because we're so desperate, they themselves are in need of support and mental health evaluation. You know, it is so important for us to really, really think about these things. It is a very good side, just like, you know, in the ministry and some other thing, the military. Teaching is in that same category, because without teachers, no other profession is possible. So we have to start thinking about it, get into the profession. I know everybody wants to be a nurse, a medical doctor, and all that stuff. But the most important thing is that we need parents, those who know kids in the classrooms as well. So thank you for asking that question.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima.
Thank you for asking that question.
So how can we get in touch
Dr.
with you
Fatima.
about that, to learn more about how to get into the system and all that?
Well, you know what, we are available, and then I know that we have some such, well, it's only for employees, unfortunately. We do have, like, we have some programs that will also help you if you don't have, like, we have SUDA. So what I have done with some is that I have hired them as paraprofessionals and then recommended them to get the SUDA, and that will help you to get your, you know, your credentials.
And that will help you to get your, you know, your credentials.
To answer your question, there's a lot out there. Even the university.
Who provide Dr. Fatima?
There's a lot out university.
Okay. So because of the shortages, yes, there is a lot of, you know, information.
So because of the shortages,
I know Metro State is doing one, St. Thomas is doing one, St. Mary's also is trying to, and then Concordia, they have programs. So it is important to think about it. I know that people are scared about the students not being respectful and things like that. But they need people to who really have a heart for making sure that the future that we are creating, which is our future as well, is sane. And we're raising our students to be responsible adults. Because if we do not do the right thing, trust me, it's going to come back and backfire. I could tell you stories and stories of students that went back and did some things and affected the community. You might think you're in your average tower. You live, you work in St. Paul, and you live in the boondocks, or you live somewhere where you think they won't reach you. They will. When they had a lot of carjacking at one time, they had some in Woodbury, and a lot of these students are students that people thought, oh, they will never reach me. But it's a small world. It's a small city. It's a small state. Everything that we do today will definitely reflect on whatever outcomes we get tomorrow. So I am pitching for teachers. I made the very right decision in the profession that I am. I'm getting to the end of it, because of course that's what they call retirement. But it is important for us to continue to encourage. And please feel free to let me know. My number is 651-238-2261. I'll put it in the chat. If you really want to get in the profession, we'll find a way. Starting with a bachelor's degree, that's all you need. And then other things come into play. And then for some of these programs that we have, the alternative programs, they actually will give you enough, to get your license and everything. And then maybe 2 or 3 more credits to get your master's. And, in our education, if you have more, it goes bachelor's plus 30 plus 15 plus 30 plus 45 plus 60, all the way to the doctorate. So every little education you have counts. Every little credit you have counts. So it's very, very important to think about it. To be honest with you, it's not enough for all of us to be in one profession when there is a bigger need in other areas, like education, for example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a hand raised? One lady P. Is there a hand raised?
Yes, thank you, Lady P.
Yes, ma'am.
Unmute and
Thank you very much to all the panelists or the presenters. Really enjoyed the discussion. My question or my suggestion will be going to the child support person. See, I am putting in here both as a parent and as a practitioner. My question is, I don't know if there is any way that the parents can be supported or educated concerning child protection, because what I see in the community is that when child protection comes in, there is fear because they don't know exactly what the problem is. And that causes them to lash out and, ask questions and prevent the child protection person from going into the house. Is there any way the parents can be educated? I know very well that we have a problem with attending seminars or attending programs like this, but I don't know if there could be mandated situation from the government so that parents can take advantage of that knowledge. Secondly, I have realized that when there is a situation that involves child protection, the child or the children, if they are grown enough, decide to run the family, in which case the parents don't have any much say, or they are the end of their rope, and that can put in a lot of tension in the family. Is there any way you can address that for us? Thank you.
You're muted. He's muted.
Okay, sorry. The last part of your question, I didn't quite get what you said with the adult child. So, could you repeat that, please?
Yes, sir. Am I still muted?
No, go ahead. I can hear you.
Okay. What I'm trying to say is that when there is a child protection situation in the family, and the child is a little bit grown enough, they tend to come back and run the parents. They run the family.
Okay.
Yes. Anything you say to me again, I'm going to go tell them in school, and child protection will be here. You see. And that looks as if he's having the parents' hands tied in the training or the nurturing and supporting of the child. In that case, whatever they ask, parents will have to try and get it, even if they have to go borrowing, because they don't want child protection to come back. Is there any way you can educate us a little bit on how to address that in the community?
Sure. Okay. The first part of your question, wondering if there are resources or mandate for parents to be educated about child protection.
Yes.
So, yes, at the beginning of my presentation, so I did mention, the parents have the authority to ask questions. Unfortunately, because most migrant families, child protection, it's something very new that they're coming in contact with, and then with the fear that comes with it. Sometimes the fear is genuine because of the experience that some families have had in the hands of some child protection workers and the way they probably felt things were handled due to them not understanding exactly what was being done. So it all depends on individual person from person to person. Over the years, I make it a personal objective to really explain my role or what I've come to do. I make sure the parent understands, and I start by trying to alleviate their fear. It's not everybody that will sit down and do that explanation. There is no resources out there that says, to mandate that the parents be educated. It is through this kind of programs that Heaven International is doing that the parents in the community, if they come to programs like this, then they can sit down and listen to professionals like this sitting down talking about things, and clearing the air for them, so they're able to understand that they have rights. Everybody has rights, but they don't know that they have those rights. So because they are afraid, they see me as the government, they see me as a person of authority, they see me as somebody that I can arbitrarily come into their homes and remove their children, but that's not how it works. That's not how it works. But the actions, unfortunately, the actions that we take and some things that we do, and sometimes it's language barrier, will make it seem so. And they genuinely believe that that's what it is. They will say, oh, because they can tell you 1,001 stories of people they know that their children were taken. Half of the time, they don't know the stories. It could be because of drug use, and they didn't know that that parent was using drugs, and they didn't get the facts. Something else was told to them, and these people came and removed. Some have had some experience when growing up in child protection, so they grew up not wanting to have anything to do with child protection. They don't care, So it's through outreach, through programs like this, we reach all these parents, churches, in small communities. Heaven International organizes these things, and other agencies, they call people like us who will come out and talk to these groups and reach them. That is the way that they begin to know. And also, agencies retraining their workers and saying, you have to explain what you have come to do. So it's on an individual basis. So I would like for the parents to understand what I've come to do. And I explain to them, if I have to remove, the children, I will explain to them why the child is being removed, what is the next step, and what needs to be done for for them to get their child or children back. It is their right they need to be explained to. They will ask. And that is why in court, they get appointed guardian. The children have guardians. They have people, lawyers and stuff that, help the parents so they can better understand what is going on. But it's not every time that cases end up in courts. There are other ones that is just showing up, and telling a parent, sometimes if you don't calm them down, they are not listening to what you're saying. All they're hearing is, for you to come here, it means I'm not a good parent. Well, I'm a good parent. I have 2 jobs. I'm providing for my children. They have name brand clothing, this. And you're trying to say, well, I'm here because your child came to school, with a mark on the back. That's what I want to talk about. How, did they get this? Let's talk about that mark. Let's talk about what led to it. Let's talk about how you avoid it next time. So that is that part. The second part of your question, they had children running homes. I see that all the time. Yeah, I see that all the time. Children are very good at manipulating and exploiting the situation to their own advantage, especially if they have mothers that don't speak English as the first language. They tend to exploit the situation. And you know what I found out? When it is, they're able to do so, not because the social worker came, but because they have been running things in the home from the get-go. So they're able to sit down and exploit the situation. So the parent, what would the parent do?
Yeah.
As long as you know that what you're doing is right, you again, that's your child. And that home is your home. Okay. You have rules, you have culture. One, if you are a Somali person, you're a Muslim. Once I walk through the door and come into your house, once you close that door, I'm in Somalia, regardless that you're here, because what persists inside that home is the culture that you subscribe to. I, as a social worker, must respect that culture. So the parent, the parent need to say, you can call them if you want. You call their bluff. You know what? You pick up the phone. You pick up the phone and call them for yourself. I'll give you an example. We have had parents. They sit down and say, you know what? The child will say, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And you say, okay, your coffee time is 7 o'clock. Your coffee time is 9 o'clock. You come home, you can come back at 9. And you leave it at that. The child decides to come at 11. And the mom says, and they say, well, I'm going to tell them last week you did this, and did this, and did that. Okay, fine. What do you do? Instead of you give the child the instruction. It's okay, you want to do this? I'll call the police for you myself. And once you do that, that child will begin to learn, oh, so my mom can do this. You call their bluff. You say, you want child protection? I'll call child protection for you. You can actually call us. It's a parent-child conflict. Let's say, I am having problems with my son and my daughter. I need help. That is not a child protection report. It's a child welfare case.
Okay.
Somebody will be assigned to come to your home to listen to you and listen to the child, because what you're doing is you're proactive now. So they're going to talk to that child. If that child needs to see a therapist, they will recommend that for you.
Okay.
So don't be afraid of your own child and allow the child to run you. They can only tell a story. If you tell me that your mom slapped you and I come over there and your mom did not slap you, you will tell me you didn't slap him. I don't see anything to show that you slapped him. He's going to school. I check school records. He's coming to school. If he's troublesome at home, the chances are he's probably going to be truant in school anyway, somehow. Talk to those folks in school. So that stops that. Do not allow your child to run you. That is simple. The parent need to stand their ground. So don't be afraid of child protection. Nobody will walk into your home if you haven't done anything to remove your child or tell you that you're a bad parent. No, that is not how it works.
Okay, thank you very much. I asked the question because I'm a resource person in the community, and a lot of people come to me with those questions.
Sure.
And when it comes to child protection, everybody is very scared because most of us don't know exactly how, why, when, and what they are coming in for. We are just afraid. Number three, you just mentioned that the agency will have to do a better job of retraining the workers, because there are some workers, not all of them, some employees of the organization that come in, and then, in fact, by the time they are done talking to you, you just see yourself mentally in jail because of what they have told you. And you don't know how to go about it. So sometimes it's very intimidating when they come with all the bluffs and already you are stressed. It is very hard on the parents too. So retraining could be a better way. And I know it's very difficult now to, with the hiring situation. It would do us a little bit good if we can be having people from our community that understand our culture and understand how we are and who we are, why we are here and where we are coming from. That will help put the parent side of it at rest than people who don't understand them. For the fact that we are all Africans does not mean that all of us have the same culture. We have different cultures. So like a cultural intelligence could help a lot when it comes to these things. Thank you.
So just follow up on just one more comment. You mentioned something about somebody coming and saying stuff and you're afraid. Okay. Every worker has a supervisor, and that supervisor has a supervisor.
Okay.
When what they explain to you is not clear, you simply ask the person, what is your supervisor? If they don't tell you, just call the main number, give them the name of the worker, and ask for the worker supervisor. 9 out of 10 times, the supervisor will be more than happy to explain and clear their fears that they have from that, and they step in. So they are always, yes, they're there. What the decisions that we take, most people think that decision is me being in the field is my decision. No. When I finish talking to you, watch every worker, when they finish talking to you, they step out and make a phone call. That phone call is they are talking to their supervisor. They are sharing with their supervisor what they just gathered. And then they make a decision on what to do going forward. So it's joint decision between that worker and the supervisor that's sitting in the office, waiting and knows what everybody is doing, so they can, talk to them. So they should feel free to ask to speak to the supervisor. If they don't speak English, when they call, tell them the language that you speak. They'll get somebody will call you back, and they'll call with appropriate somebody to be able to talk to you.
All right. Thank you.
I just quickly want to add, being in the trenches myself, that sometimes, I know that Hmong community, current now, they do not rush to judgment, because we are told we report. You say mark, you report. But they do their investigation with their communities. I don't know whether Dr. Ebuja, you know that. They do that. So there's very minimal reporting from their community, because they take care of business themselves, so to speak. Or if they want to work with a child protection worker, then they insist on getting one that understands their culture. So
exactly.
What ADP was saying is that we need people like you to be looking at our situations with your cultural lens, equity lens, and everything. Because some of these people come, even sometimes when they report certain things, I'm like, what for that? I mean, they don't understand the cultural, I would say, context.
Yes.
Some of our families are. And that's something others are fighting for their people. And I know it's working, that we are not doing.
That's true.
That's true. Okay, good.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. We are out of time. We have other questions, so maybe we'll send the questions to the panelists so that they can respond. And we can send the response to the individuals. We'll continue this conversation. We are about to get to school September, so if your questions are not answered this time, just keep them. We'll look at them next time. This has been an informative session. This session, we thank you all for our speakers. We are grateful. Every time we call on you, you answer us. We are really appreciative of your time. Thank you so much. And I'm sure the participants value your input. Again, thank you so much. And we'll see you again in September. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.